2018's Black Panther has cemented itself as one of the best comic book movies of all time, and it's been rewarded with a worldwide gross of almost $1.5 billion. A hell of a lot of work and time went into making the Marvel Studios offering, and we're gonna take a look at just some of what went on behind the scenes. These behind-the-scenes secrets will change how you watch Black Panther. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It's the best way of keeping up to date with all of ScreenRant's great new videos.
This is what they do to people like us.
I ain't worried about no brand. Check these out.
KILLMONGER'S scars. Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger, who also went by the names Eric Stevens and Angelica, was one of the very best things about the Black Panther movie. Until Josh Brolin's Mad Titan THANOS came along in Avengers Infinity War a few months later, he was undoubtedly the best villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe since Tom Hiddleston's Loki. The character had one scar for every person he'd ever killed, which resulted in around 3,000 prosthetic dots covering his body. A concept that borrowed inspiration from Africa's real-life Mercy tribe, who live in the isolated Omo Valley in southern Ethiopia near the border of Sudan. The look was created by Morphology Effects founder Joel Harlow, whose resume includes movies like Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, Star Trek Beyond, and Logan, and was made by putting a glue-like material in molds. It was a very challenging task, especially given that Jordan's character was involved in a number of close contact scenes that could have damaged the prosthetics. And given the fact that one of his major scenes at Warrior Falls involved a lot of water, which is the natural enemy of any type of makeup, the dots took several hours to apply every day, and Jordan deserves a medal for patiently sitting through it. The RHINOS. Believe it or not, there weren't actually any real rhinos used in these climactic battle scenes in Black Panther. We know, hard to believe, right? They were, however, one of the most challenging CGI aspects of a movie that was filled with computer-generated imagery from start to finish. The main issue was the specific locomotion that the visual effects team needed to get right. There was only so much footage of rhinos banking and running around corners to be found online, so they built up a library of basic gaits, such as walking and running. From there, they were able to fine-tune the performance to either speed up or slow down the action as required in any given scene. The war rhinos actually came in extremely handy for any action-packed scenes in which camera movement was difficult. Some of the CGI creatures were used to effectively wipe the camera clean, so that when a rhino completely covered the screen, the next frame could seamlessly begin from a point that would have been difficult to move the camera to in a more organic fashion.
Past willing, this will go quickly and I can get this ridiculous thing off my head.
It looks nice. Just whip it back and forth, eh?
What?
NAKIA'S green dress. Remember that awesome scene when T'Challa, Okoye, and Nakia traveled to Busan in South Korea, where Andy Serkis' Ulysses Claw planned to sell the vibranium Wakandan artifact to Martin Freeman's CIA agent Everett K. Ross? And remember the dresses the Wakandan ladies were wearing in said scene? Well, you might be surprised to learn that there was more to NAKIA'S green dress than meets the eye. Ryan Coogler broke down the scene for a video feature for Vanity Fair, and it's a video packed with great details. However, one particular part jumped out more than the others. After a fairly lengthy discussion about the colors that were used in the scene, those being T'Challa's black suit, Okoye's red uniform, and the aforementioned NAKIA'S green dress, which represent the colors of the Pan-African flag, Coogler let it slip that Lupita Nyong'o's dress wasn't actually made from cloth or any type of material typically associated with clothing. The dress was actually custom printed using a 3D printer in order to perfectly fit her body. Those things really can print anything these days. Kendrick Lamar's soundtrack. Yep, that's right, it's 2018, and we now live in a world where the Walt Disney Company commissioned a Kendrick Lamar album for the Black Panther movie in the mold of Drake's commercial mixtape, More Life. Although it should be said it wasn't always the intention for Lamar and his label Top Dog Entertainment to do the whole thing. Initially, director Ryan Coogler approached Lamar and Top Dog CEO Anthony Tippett to make just a small number of songs for the soundtrack. But when Coogler showed Lamar some of the movie, the rapper and songwriter was so impressed that he just decided to do the whole thing right there and then. Lamar, Tippett, and their label's in-house producer Mike Spears, aka Soundwave, worked on ideas for hooks and production during Lamar's cross-country tour for his critically acclaimed album, Damn. The brilliant end product featured artists from across the world, including Vince Staples, Schoolboy Q, and others from the United States, James Blake and Georgia Smith from the United Kingdom, and even Yungin Blackrock, Babes Wodomo, and Saudi from South Africa. It's a truly diverse soundtrack that complements the movie beautifully, and it wouldn't have happened if Kendrick Lamar didn't think the movie was fantastic.
this? Just a little gift.
Wakanda. As a fictional country, Wakanda obviously doesn't really exist, but the actual set for the African nation didn't really exist as such either. It was almost entirely CGI. When it came to creating Wakanda, it required a huge variety of digital environments, from high-tech areas like the landing pad in the city to the more humble market environment of Step Town, as well as locations like the Tribal Council Chamber, the Hall of Kings, the Borderlands, and all the canyon environments for the dogfight at the movie's climax. ILM, the company's visual effects supervisor, and the film's art department faced not only technical challenges on the film, but also a number of cultural design issues. How do you make a city seem specifically African in terms of its culture while also making it a high-tech utopia of advanced materials and technologies? The answer is a lot of research and taking influence from the colors and architecture of African countries, as well as a whole lot of green screen. Essentially, almost everything from the buildings, the landscape, and even the sky in Wakanda weren't really there when the movie's Wakandan scenes were filmed, and the actors were simply performing in front of giant green screens. Warrior Falls. What we've just said about Wakanda being mostly CGI was true, but one notable exception was Warrior Falls, which was actually built. The set was 120 feet by 75 feet in area and 36 feet tall, with the battle pools being 6 feet above ground level. Construction took about 4 months, and more than 25,000 cubic feet of foam was used to put it together, which was sculpted to match the rocks in South Africa's beautiful Oribi Gorge. The bottom of the pool was padded for the stunt team, but it still looked very much like it was made of rock. The production crew also had to create a surface that was rough enough to not be too slippery on bare feet, but not so rough that it hurt to land on. And the stunt team had to rig all the cliff faces with mountain climbing gear to safely secure all the extras on them. Most impressively, the production team engineered a fully functional flowing waterfall and pool at the ledge of the cliff, with 6 large submersible pumps feeding over 125,000 gallons of temperature-controlled water through the set at a rate of 30,000 gallons per minute. Whew! This was a mammoth project in its own right, before even taking into account the huge amount of effort that went into the rest of the movie.
Strike it.
Anyway.
The Black Panther suit. Ruth E. Carter was the costume designer on Black Panther, and one of her responsibilities included steeping the characters of Wakanda in clothing that spoke to the real Africa, while retaining the mythical quality that the reclusive, technologically advanced nation required. The most iconic costume was, of course, the Black Panther suit worn by T'Challa, which Carter designed by steeping herself in the rich, multifaceted customs and cultures that existed on the African continent, while imagining a nation not only unconquered, but possessing the world's most advanced, environmentally sound technology. She studied the Black Panther suit from Captain America: Civil War and decided that while beautiful, it had less nuance and specificity than many of the superheroes he was fighting alongside. She needed to give it a proper African makeover. Carter found her inspiration for the new suit in Botswana, from the people who live along the Okavango River, where a lot of the designs are triangular in shape. She also took to researching classic superheroes, including quite prominently those from DC, to ensure the suit was ageless and wouldn't look out of date in a few years' time. So Black Panther's costume is basically a mix of traditional African designs and, would you believe it, some DC Comics influence. Combat scenes. The combat and action scenes in Black Panther were amazing, and this entry serves as an insight into various aspects of that. The cast did most of the fight work themselves. Chadwick Boseman's own skills include a comprehensive martial arts background, which really helped him perform the titular role, and the whole cast had to attend a boot camp to prepare them for the physical demands of their roles. The Dora Milaje were cast from a pool of actresses, stuntwomen, and dancers, so each individual member of the elite group could have specialized skills and individuality. The cast and stunt actors practiced with African drums played by musician Jabari Exum, so their movements would have the kind of musical quality found in many African-based martial arts. The high-speed car chase in South Korea was filmed on location in Busan. The cast and crew spent almost 2 weeks in the coastal city to film the epic sequence through iconic sites like Gwangali Beach and the Hyundai district. Director Ryan Coogler wanted that sequence to be seamless, so she had an editor on set cutting footage in real time, which isn't often done during production, but Coogler felt it was the best way to capture everything. Finally, Daniel Kaluuya learned how to ride a horse as practice for simulating riding W'Kabi's armored rhino.
Benedict Cumberbatch, coming through the hatch. This is so bad.
Rap battles. It certainly wasn't all work and no play behind the scenes in Black Panther's set, not by a long stretch. In fact, the cast and crew had a lot of fun times while working on the movie, and that fun included a series of rap battles between two of the movie's leading ladies, those being Danai Gurira, who played the head of the Dora Milaje Okoye, and Letitia Wright, who played T'Challa's genius sister Shuri. In an interview with popular magazine Entertainment Weekly, Gurira and Wright let it slip that the two of them would often break out into freestyle lyrical battles during downtime on Black Panther's set. Apparently, at one point, Gurira even managed to trick Wright when she started rapping the lyrics to LL Cool J's 1990 hit Around the Way Girl, something that Wright never lived down. It all points to the whole thing being a great experience for everyone involved in Black Panther, not just because of the unprecedented primarily black cast and a black titular superhero being a positive step forward in Hollywood diversity, and not because of the undeniable commercial and critical success the movies had, but because it definitely sounds like everyone had a great time during its production.
Look good.
Thank you.
You look good.
Too. Appreciate it.
So you were backstage, you were probably getting all ready and doing push-ups and stuff, but
Push-ups challenge. Although this didn't actually happen behind the scenes on the set of Black Panther, the bet that caused it to happen did, and it does further serve to highlight the general atmosphere during production, so we're happy to include it here. On the Black Panther press tour, which was an absolute sight to behold incidentally, it was revealed that Michael B. Jordan, who played the antagonist Eric Killmonger Stevens, lost a bet to Lupita Nyong'o on the set of the movie. The result was that Nyong'o, who played T'Challa's former lover Nakia, could force him to do one push-up at any given moment of her choosing. Nyong'o has forced Jordan to do them in places like dressing rooms and even in the middle of New York Fashion Week. All things considered, everything points to the Black Panther cast having a lot of camaraderie and fun on the set, which is always nice to know. And you almost get the sense that they were more like a family than they were co-workers. Regardless, everything that went on behind the scenes resulted in a fantastic cinematic experience for those of us who went to watch it, and we can't wait to see the sequel in a few years' time.
I made it rain.
Get out of here, boss.
Spider-Man Far From Home is the second of only 2 Marvel films scheduled to hit the big screen in 2019. So naturally, fans want to know how the web-swinger is after the events of Endgame and the loss of his mentor, Tony Stark. We take a look at cast interviews, behind-the-scenes shots, and even some of the merchandise to reveal what could be going on in this MCU film. In an interview with Jimmy Kimmel recently, the cast of Spider-Man Far From Home sat down to talk about the promotional materials for the movie, including that trailer which garnered 135 million views in just 1 hour.
Wow.
Despite being a millennial though, it was revealed Tom Holland doesn't actually know how to use Instagram, which was required of him by the studio to launch the trailer. The young English actor revealed that he was supposed to release the Spider-Man trailer at 6 a.m. and not only forgot to do it, but had no idea how to post a video to Instagram. He had to FaceTime co-star Zendaya for help on how to do it. As Holland stated himself, he's basically an old man stuck in a young man's body when it comes to social media.
Clean your plates, and only a half hour of radio, and then it's off to bed.
Something that surprises not only Kimmel, but his younger co-stars as well. It's not that hard, Holland. Practice makes perfect. Thankfully, Peter is a bit more tech-savvy. As cool as it would be to personally own a Spider-Man suit to wear on the regular, you have to admit that it isn't the most practical of designs. This is especially true when it comes time to go to the washroom thanks to there being no buttons or zippers on that stretchy onesie. Tom Holland learned this the hard way when he played the web-slinger in the past, and this time he put his foot down, requesting there be a zipper on the suit for him in order to make it easier to go to the bathroom as opposed to removing the suit each time nature calls. His request was, of course, denied. What did change though was the helmet underneath the material, which cut and irritated Holland's face in Homecoming. This time around, the suit worked perfectly for Holland, and he was able to do his scenes without getting cuts and bruises on his face due to the material being softer without any jagged edges. Mysterio is one of the major players in this movie, and by some stroke of luck and raw talent, Marvel and Sony were able to make a comic book accurate villain costume and not have it look ridiculous.
Green Lantern's life.
Jake Gyllenhaal will be sporting the cape, the green, and the fishbowl, but he broke down some of the technical difficulties with the suit. There are a lot of lights and electrics in the suit to make it glow and light up, but thanks to the helmet and the larger chest area, Jake couldn't look down to see anything. So one day on set, the lights just turned into a disco ball, and Gyllenhaal had no idea, but the whole crew was looking at him like he was an alien. Aside from some malfunctioning lights, there are also some secrets in the suit that couldn't be shared. But we have to start wondering what Mysterio is hiding in that suit. The disco light malfunction could be used as a Far From Home music video. Contrary to comic book lore, it looks like Far From Home is going to alter expectations a bit when it comes to the character of Mysterio. The character is a beloved Spidey antagonist and is a regular member of the Sinister Six after being recruited by Doc Ock himself. His powers rely heavily on the art of deception, making him a fearsome antagonist for the web-slinger. Yet the marketing trailers have showed us that this Mysterio may actually be an ally to Spider-Man. What? Say what? While some fans may have their doubts about that, Jacob Batalon reiterated that this Mysterio is one of the good guys in the movie and is fighting side by side with Spider-Man against the Elementals. Is he being honest, or is this just a deception for the benefit of the audience? Guess we'll have to wait a little longer to find out. But seriously, he's gotta end up being bad. It's a classic superhero story we cannot wait to see on the big screen. While not a behind-the-scenes detail specifically, this piece of information does offer a bit of insight that we haven't seen in the trailers or posters up until this point. As per every big pop culture film or television show to come out these days, there'll be a set of Funko Pop toys releasing with the movie. As the new Spidey set gets released for collectors, two of them have us wondering what's to come in Far From Home. While there are certainly no major spoilers in them, we do have to wonder who that giant check is for that Funko Happy Hogan is holding and how that ties into the plot of the movie. Likewise, it looks like MJ gets an action scene of her own based on her Funko, as evident by her holding, of all things, a medieval mace. Considering the Elementals are likely immune to blunt force trauma, we have to wonder who MJ is fighting in Far From Home. Thoughts? At CCXP, which is the Brazilian Comic-Con, which takes place in Sao Paulo, Jacob Batalon talked about what kind of stuff fans can expect to see in Far From Home, including all of the action and stunts, the vacation aspect of the story, and how fun it was to travel around Europe.
History began on July 4th, 1776. Everything before that was a mistake.
Most interestingly, the relationship stuff, as he called it, gave us a lot of details. Considering that Homecoming revealed that the quirky weird girl in Peter's grade was in fact nicknamed MJ as an allusion to Mary Jane Watson, we can likely expect some sort of awkward yet hysterical romantic subplot to be featured in this high school flavored superhero flick. The spoiler trailer makes it a point to tell us that MJ knows that Peter is Spider-Man, claiming it's obvious, so it looks like this movie is going to breeze past the whole protecting my secret identity thing. During an interview with Jimmy Kimmel, Tom Holland explained some of the action scenes featured on Far From Home, specifically a showdown between him and Hydro Man, one of the Elementals featured in the movie. Holland detailed the procedure involved in putting that stunt piece together on set. Using a ratchet, Holland was to be flung against a wall, while protected by the control granted by the machine. At the same time, a whole bunch of cold water was propelled at him to give the illusion that water was propelling him against the wall, simulating the attack from Hydro Man. Holland was already not very psyched for this scene as it was cold water, filmed in October, and he was wearing a onesie. Unfortunately, when he was flung against the wall, the special effects guy was late in pressing the button to release the water, so not only did the water eventually hit Holland even though the shot was wasted, he had to dry off and do the shot again. Part of the fun of Spider-Man is Parker's love of creating new suits to experiment with and wear as he fights crime. If you played the Webslingers 2018 game on PS4, you'll know that half the fun was collecting the variety of classic suits from the movies and comics. Well, it looks like there'll be more suits to add to the Spider-Man collection thanks to these on-set photos. In a scene with Mary Jane, Spider-Man can be seen talking to her and even picking her up and swinging away on cables. The suit looks a bit similar to the one he wore throughout Homecoming, only the blues are now black. Is this a way for Parker to mourn the passing of Tony Stark, or does it hide a new power? It looks like this is early on in the movie as the duo are still in New York, so we're thinking there's a connection to the passing of Tony. Guess we'll have to wait and find out. You don't need to be a genius like Tony Stark to know that Tom Holland is incredibly fit. He may look small and skinny at first glance, but the 23-year-old English actor actually loves practicing gymnastics and is pretty strict about his workout regime, resulting in a body fit for a superhero.
Oh, it's a deep burn. Oh, it's so deep. Oh, I could barely lift my right arm because I did so many.
For Far From Home, though, he realized that time has passed since the first solo Spidey film in the MCU, and deduced that this Parker is a bit older and wiser compared to when we first saw him. So Holland upped his workout to ensure that he was just a little bit more in shape to reflect Parker's growing skills as a superhero. In hindsight, Holland actually regrets the move, as he didn't like how he appeared being a bit bulkier, stating that he looked to be in better shape in Homecoming as a leaner web-slinger. We all know Tom Holland is a chronic blabbermouth. The young actor has spilled the beans too many times for Marvel, to the point where they simply don't trust the actor to keep his mouth shut anymore when it comes to major plot points in their movies. For Avengers Endgame, Holland's script consisted only of his lines and nothing else. Maybe that's why he was tasked with giving the spoiler warning at the beginning of the Far From Home trailer, which opens up with the information that Tony Stark is dead.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
But Holland wasn't even privy to this information during the Avengers shoot. When it came time for the funeral scene, Holland thought that they were filming a wedding scene and that he was very confused when Robert Downey Jr. wasn't on set and everyone was looking sad. It's very likely Holland doesn't really know what goes on in Far From Home either. Don't get too excited here. This isn't the MCU's version of Spider-Man Noir, who made an appearance in Into the Spider-Verse, or the famous black symbiote suit, which is automatically connected to the Venom symbiote. But there is going to be a new black suit in the Marvel Universe, and while we have seen this suit in the trailers already, Tom Holland gave fans a little bit of information on the so-called stealth suit. Holland is seemingly a fan of this suit, calling it the comfy suit, which sounds a lot better than when he was struggling to use the bathroom in a tight onesie. This new suit is a high-tech suit designed by Nick Fury himself and given to Parker to undertake a secret mission. Amazingly, Tom Holland actually kept this mission secret so far, so it must be very important to the plot. What he did share with the crowd at Brazil's CCXP is that all the Spidey suits are made in Brazil, much to the crowd's enjoyment. Jake Gyllenhaal is an acclaimed actor who seems to love character dramas at this point in his career, whether it's the Netflix thriller Velvet Buzzsaw, The Sister Brothers, and Nocturnal Animals.
You're such a ass.
That's why it's so great to see him join the MCU as a character we all initially thought was going to be a villain from the get-go. With that plot thread now shrouded in mystery and Gyllenhaal's role up in the air, we can't help but be excited to see the movie, especially with what the actor said to fans in Brazil during CCXP. Being such a talented and respected actor, Gyllenhaal brings a certain weight to his movies and only picks the best. That's why it's great to hear him say not only is what Marvel and Sony doing great script-wise, but also that his character is fresh and original. Sure, he's contractually obligated to say these things now, but Gyllenhaal didn't have to take the role, and if he said the script was as good as he said it was, and that's why he took the film because of its originality, we should take his word for it considering his reputation. While Spider-Man and Mysterio are out fighting the elementals for one Nicholas J. Fury in Europe, the Master of Spies himself may be undertaking his own mission in Europe in the shadows. Thanks to some spy cam footage taken on set in Europe, we now know that Fury and his most trusted associate Maria Hill are working together in some capacity without the direct help of Spider-Man. The world is threatened yet again so soon after the events of Endgame, and while the likes of Captain Marvel and Thor are apparently out of reach, the former head of S.H.I.E.L.D. is still more than ready to get down in the dirt to save the day. What could they be doing on their own? Could they simply be en route to meeting Spider-Man, or do they have their own plans that the web-slinger may not be privy to? As Stark said himself, Fury's secrets have secrets, and there's more going on here than meets the eye. Perhaps, while he has employed Mysterio for aid, something isn't fully adding up for him.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
As we all know by now, Jake Gyllenhaal is in the movie as Mysterio, one of the most beloved Spider-Man villains from the comics. The character is yet to be on the big screen before Far From Home, so fans are quite curious to see what this character does in the MCU that drew Jake to the role. Only Gyllenhaal got off to a rocky start playing the character, and it has nothing to do with the direction, story, or character. He was told to extend his arms on set to shoot the lasers out of his hand, as he called them, but thanks to his clunky suit, he was actually unable to extend his arms all the way, resulting in T-Rex hands for the first day on set. Gyllenhaal thought he botched the scene, but as it turns out, that scene will actually be fixed in post-production with the help of some CGI trickery. So when you see Mysterio doing that move, just remember those arms are likely not real. We know that Peter Parker decides to join his class and go to Europe for a much-needed vacation after the events of Infinity War and Endgame, but thanks to some behind-the-scenes pictures, we know a little bit more about some of the European locations and what might happen to them during the film. The New Yorkers will make their way to Venice, where it looks like plenty of destruction goes down at some point thanks to these set photos. Likely, those elementals really tore up the town. Likewise, it looks like Peter and the gang will go to some kind of fair while in Liberec in the Czech Republic, which can be seen briefly in the trailers as the location of an action set piece. Hopefully, Peter can have at least one normal night out with MJ and Ned while on this trip. Seriously, this high school Euro trip sounds amazing! One of the biggest surprises in Spider-Man Homecoming was the inclusion of the character of Ned Leeds. While a character from the comics, the character was significantly reworked from a Daily Bugle reporter and eventual hobgoblin to a fellow high school outcast and best friend of Peter Parker who not only enjoys building Lego Death Star sets, but quickly learns that Peter Parker is the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, giving Parker a confidant to talk to about his masked heroism. In the MCU, Ned provided some of the best laughs in the movies, including the scene where he distracts kids on the bus in Infinity War. Jacob Batalon promises that we'll not only get more Ned in Far From Home, but also Ned will get to do more, telling us not to be shocked at what he can do. Perhaps Ned will get involved in the action in Europe and help his friend Peter save the day at some point. Big pieces of entertainment can't take any chances in the internet age when it comes to leaks and spoilers. Studios like Marvel, Lucasfilm, and even HBO took extreme measures to ensure that their stories don't make their way online before the movie or show gets released.
Extreme measures. Extreme measures. Extreme measures.
Whether it be using digital-only scripts that delete after completion, to scripts being kept under lock, guard, and key, to using red paper, which is impossible to photocopy. These properties are looking for new and creative ways to keep their secrets off the internet prematurely. When it came time for the script for Far From Home, Zendaya revealed that any major spoiler featured in the script was actually redacted like the Mueller report. So while memorizing their lines, the actors had no idea what was actually going on, even though they were in the movie. Jacob Bolton, who plays Ned, took this literally and actually said the words "blacked out line" on set during his scenes, believing his lines would be added in post-production. Part of the reason for all the secrecy on set comes from Tom Holland himself, who is notorious for spilling the goods about his movie when doing press tours. With Far From Home releasing just around the corner on July 2nd, you can bet that Holland has let something slip. So spoiler warning ahead for the villains of Far From Home. During a live Q&A, Holland accidentally revealed to a live audience that the elementals featured in the movie were brought to Earth 616 after Thanos snapped his fingers in Infinity War, creating a portal to another dimension. So Hydro Man and the other elementals are literally not of this world. Interestingly, Mysterio is also from a different dimension, as revealed officially from Marvel. After revealing the truth about the elementals, as you can imagine, Holland freaked out about his error, knowing that it would be live on the internet and social media within seconds of revealing the spoiler, and likely fearing the Marvel executives that will have a few choice words for him about keeping plot points to himself.
The massive scale and production that went into the Avengers Infinity War is impressive enough as it is, but seeing it come to life behind the scenes creates a whole different appreciation. Watch as actors play around, showcase special effects, and help create one of the most epic movies of all time. Before you watch, click subscribe. You'll join our notification squad to be the first to know of new Screen Rant content.
Good luck keeping up.
The Godfather. Robert Downey Jr.'s role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been one of the key parts in making the films and their connections so successful. As he teams up with old co-stars and new actors, behind-the-scenes footage reveals something special. Robert is referred to as the Godfather on set. As revealed by the Incredible Hulk himself, Mark Ruffalo, Robert Downey Jr. is a legend in the MCU. In some more footage, we see Downey Jr. and Ruffalo goofing off together while on set. After multiple films together, the pair clearly has a relationship and bond both in and out of the MCU.
Does it make you an Avenger now as well? Oh, maybe like a third string Avenger, yeah.
Jealous Avengers. The Avengers Infinity War got the chance to mix MCU franchises together, which had their own standalone films. One of these included Guardians of the Galaxy. In a behind-the-scenes clip, we see Thor's Chris Hemsworth and Guardians' Chris Pratt banter about Pratt's inclusion as a possible new member of the Avengers. Hemsworth and Pratt showcase their instant chemistry with some great one-liners, and Hemsworth proclaiming himself as an original Avenger, while Pratt is just joining in on the group. Clearly, their off-screen chemistry translated well into the memorable scenes these two have in the movie.
I love all of you, and I look forward to seeing many of you as we trudge this road of happy destiny.
A 10-year photo shoot. The 10-year anniversary of the MCU has culled together a who's who of Hollywood stars. While the actors have been spread out over multiple films, a majority of them came together for a special photo shoot with heroes, villains, and some of the biggest actors in Hollywood. Along with our mainstay heroes, behind-the-scenes footage showcases Paul Rudd, Kurt Russell, and future heroes like Brie Larson's Captain Marvel. Years from now, we will all look back on this photo and the footage to see how far the MCU has come and developed. Imagine how big the cast photo will be when the 20-year mark rolls around.
Day one of what promises to be fun-filled lensing.
Day one. Planning a film like Avengers: Infinity War takes years of planning, scheduling, and writing. Once all of the set pieces are set in place, filming can begin, and a special behind-the-scenes video showcases the day one filming with Chris Pratt, Tom Holland, and Robert Downey Jr. The best part of the video is seeing Tom Holland's reaction to being part of the Avengers. He's living out every fanboy's dream as he talks about seeing the first Avengers in theaters and the opportunity he now has to star in one of the films.
I feel like I'm on top of the world.
And of course, he practically stole the movie with some of his emotional scenes near the finale.
The immersive experience that IMAX gives you where you lose the rest of the theater, you don't see it, all you see is the image.
Shooting in IMAX. With an epic film like Infinity War, you need to have an epic way to capture all of the footage. A behind-the-scenes video showcases how IMAX cameras were used for the whole production of the movie. We see the IMAX camera shoot against blue screen and green backdrops as heroes like Captain America and the Scarlet Witch perform in scenes. These massive film cameras were the best way to capture all of the heroes together on screen all at once. In Captain America: Civil War, the cameras were used for just the airport battle, and the success of the scene helped lead to the IMAX cameras being used for the whole Infinity War shoot.
Go team, yeah!
The Iron Man Trio. Seeing our favorite characters join up and cross over in Infinity War is great, but we also love seeing our original favorites come back together on the big screen again. At the end of Spider-Man: Homecoming, we got to see Tony, Pepper, and Happy share a couple of scenes together, and all three actors returned on set for a great behind-the-scenes look at their journey through the MCU. These three actors have been around since the beginning, and Jon Favreau even directed the first two Iron Man films. Hearing them talk about their journey showcases how long our journey has been following them and the expanding MCU over the past 10 years.
And I think there is something very powerful about being able to play women who do heroic things.
Women battle it out. In the Avengers: Infinity War, there is no shortage of female warriors. We get to see some great action with characters like Nebula, Black Widow, Gamora, and Okoye. Seeing the female heroes team up is great, and some behind-the-scenes footage showcases how excited they all were to work together. Multiple shots of Okoye and the Scarlet Witch showcase some of the battle scenes on Wakanda. Black Panther highlighted the female warriors well, and Infinity War truly brought them full scale. Hopefully, it's just the beginning of a female hero renaissance in the MCU.
It's hard to know what to make of Cumberbatch, and then I just kind of infatuated with this guy.
Sherlock meets Sherlock. With a huge mix of actors appearing in the MCU, you are bound to get some other crossovers from other areas of Hollywood. This is why it's so fun to see Robert Downey Jr. and Benedict Cumberbatch interact together on screen. Both performers have great on-screen chemistry and a similar wit. Not to mention, both actors are known for playing the iconic role of Sherlock Holmes. Both Sherlocks shared a number of scenes together, making you wish Doctor Strange featured a few cameo appearances from Iron Man. Hopefully, their great behind-the-scenes chemistry can extend to the next Avengers film.
This is one fight you won't win.
Nebula's transformation. While a lot of the characters and effects in the Avengers: Infinity War are created digitally, the film is also filled with a number of practical effects. One of the biggest transformations for actors is the role of Nebula. Karen Gillan portrays Nebula in each movie, and she must go through hours and hours of makeup to bring Thanos' daughter to life. A time-lapse video showcases the painstaking process, which includes multiple layers of makeup and additional design pieces to create the character. The final design looks great on screen, and you have a lot more appreciation for both the actress and production crew after seeing the footage. The formation of Thanos. Bringing the Mad Titan to life on the big screen is no easy task. The producers, animators, and other crew members needed to make a purple-skinned character feel realistic within the MCU. Through some behind-the-scenes footage, we were able to get a glimpse at this process. On sound stages, Josh Brolin wears various motion capture suits to get Thanos' movements and actions down. Meanwhile, animators work hard at creating a facial design and animation structure which looks realistic when dialogue is applied to it. Thanos has evolved through the movie appearances he's been in, but one of the most impressive designs is featured in Infinity War.
Tell me his name again.
Thanos.
Avengers, assemble for a real behind-the-scenes treat. And please be aware that there will be spoilers in this video. Avengers Endgame is in theaters now, and it is truly taking the movie world by storm. What we saw on screen was an action-packed extravaganza and a fitting end to a 22-movie arc that spanned 11 years. But wouldn't it be cool to know what went on off-screen, behind the cameras on the movie set, and during the movie-making process? Well, that's what this video is all about, so sit back, relax, and enjoy as we take you behind the scenes of Marvel Studios' epic Avengers Endgame. Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame were released just 1 year apart from each other, and that's because they were actually filmed back-to-back. With filming coming to a conclusion on Infinity War in July of 2017, principal photography began just a month later in August for Endgame, resulting in a particularly hectic Marvel schedule for the cast and crew who worked on both movies. Production wrapped in January of 2018, and reshoots occurred in September and October of 2018 and January of 2019. The original plan was actually to film the two movies simultaneously, but the back-to-back plan was probably better, as it meant a longer wait between releases, and that longer wait probably contributed to us all enjoying Endgame so much when it finally hit theaters. Pretty much every movie has a working title, which is essentially an official name for the project while it's still in production. And Avengers Endgame's working title was Mary Lou 2. Well, that should come as no surprise, really, given that Avengers Infinity War's working title was Mary Lou. However, Endgame was referred to by the cast and crew on set as Infinity Gauntlet, which was, quite possibly, the original title of the actual movie itself. There's a rumor that the name had to be changed when Zoe Saldana blurted it out at the premiere of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which was released at a point when speculation surrounding the fourth Avengers movie's title was still absolutely rife. Avengers Endgame was undoubtedly a very long movie, 3 hours and 1 minute to be exact. But even so, you'd still expect the first cut of it to have been longer. As a general rule, the final cut of a movie has a number of scenes snipped from it, scenes that weren't deemed necessary by the people in charge. But the opposite was in fact the case with Endgame. The Russos have said that almost everything that was filmed for the movie made it into the final cut, and that some scenes were indeed added in following the first version they put together. Having watched the movie, it's hard to imagine which scenes didn't make it into that first version. Daniel Hargrave was one of the Captain America stunt doubles in the MCU, including in Avengers Endgame, and he's spoken about the fact that the cast and crew's feelings towards the movie's production were very different to previous movies. Daniel spent years on Avengers sets, which he described as normally being very businesslike, saying the cast and crew usually want to get in and get out. But the Endgame team wanted to linger after takes, and he'd personally wear the cap suit for a few more minutes than he needed to, and has said how it was hard to let it go for everyone involved. As we just touched upon in the previous entry, Daniel Hargrave was Captain America's stunt double in Avengers Endgame, but his brother Sam Hargrave had previously filled that same role in some of the other MCU movies in which Cap had appeared. But there was a scene in Endgame that had two Captain Americas in it. You know the one when 2012 Captain America fought 2023 Captain America just after the Battle of New York, and that meant two Cap stunt doubles were required. So in that scene, Sam was called back, and the two brothers were actually fighting each other. Daniel also revealed that Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson kept calling him Sam because they'd worked with his brother before and the two brothers looked so alike. Avengers Endgame opened with the heartbreaking scene of Clint Barton's family disappearing before his eyes while he was training his daughter to use a bow and arrow on his farm, as they all turned to dust when Thanos snapped his fingers. But there was a time when the team behind the last two Avengers movies contemplated having that scene in Avengers Infinity War, after the snap occurred rather than as the opening scene of its sequel. It would have been the first indication that the decimation had had a wider effect, but given that Jeremy Renner's character had literally not been in the movie prior to that point, it was decided that it might actually have blunted the brutality of what the Mad Titan had just done. Avengers Endgame screenplay writers Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely revealed a fairly morbid reason for the original Avengers surviving Thanos' snap and being there for the aftermath of Avengers Infinity War. They wanted us all to see them suffer. In a recent interview, Marcus literally said, "We knew we wanted to see Cap and Tony dealing with the aftermath so that you could really see them suffer, quite frankly." That's pretty sadistic, especially when you consider that these are extremely popular characters who are particularly loved by children. One thing's for sure though, if that's what the writers wanted to achieve, they definitely succeeded, because we definitely saw those guys suffer, even if they did ultimately defeat the Mad Titan. You know that fairly heart-wrenching scene in Avengers Endgame in which Paul Rudd's Scott Lang escapes the quantum realm and sees the huge memorial to the victims of Thanos' snap in San Francisco? Well, according to Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, there was almost a montage of sorts, showing the various memorials in other cities across America. McFeely said, "We used to have beats in the script where there are those in every city, millions of names. While that would undoubtedly have been more impactful, we got the gist of how the United States remembered the vanished from that one scene in the Golden Gate City. And Avengers Endgame was long enough to begin with, so it was probably the right decision to leave the nationwide montage out." Marcus and McFeely have also revealed where they got their inspiration for the 5-year time jump in Avengers Endgame, and it actually came from 2 different television series, Fargo and Lost. McFeely said, "We talked about Fargo from the first season where it just jumps a year, and you go, what?" We hopefully get a similar reaction, with Marcus adding, "And when Lost had their flash forwards, you were like, how did that happen?" It's fair to say that when Endgame revealed the words 5 years later one by one, the vast majority of audiences gasped in shock. So the writers definitely got the reaction they were hoping for. In fact, it was probably more surprising than what had happened in either Fargo or Lost. While Marcus and McFeely highlighted a couple of relatively modern television shows as inspiration for what went on in Avengers Endgame, Marvel Studios head honcho Kevin Feige has revealed that there was actually another more classic source of inspiration for the movie, none other than the iconic sci-fi show Star Trek. Specifically, Feige has said that All Good Things, the 1994 2-part series finale episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, heavily inspired the movie. We're not going to go off topic by going into the details about the plot of All Good Things, but suffice it to say, it heavily involved time travel, and you can certainly see exactly where that influence came from once you've watched the episodes. Marcus and McFeely have even said that in the first draft of Avengers Endgame, nobody went back to the Battle of New York. Asgard was the destination instead, because there's a short period in the MCU when the Reality Stone is there and the Space Stone is in the vault. In that iteration, Tony Stark went to Asgard, which the writers believed would be very interesting. He would have had a stealth suit so he was invisible, but he would have fought Heimdall because the eyes of Idris Elba's all-seeing character could have seen him regardless of invisibility. Of course, New York in 2012 ultimately made more sense because there were 3 Infinity Stones there at one time, as opposed to the 2 that would have been on Asgard. One of the most shocking scenes in Avengers Endgame saw Scarlett Johansson's long-standing MCU character Natasha Romanoff killed off when she sacrificed herself so that Clint Barton could obtain the Soul Stone. However, there was a version of the script in which it was the other way around. Stephen McFeely said that Jen Underdahl, the movie's visual effects producer, read a draft of the script in which Barton jumped off the cliff, and her response was to say, "Don't you take this away from her." And with that demand came the decision to give Romanoff her very fitting send-off in the franchise, giving her own life so the surrogate family she inherited could live on. By now, any fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe knows that certain actors are more prone to giving away secrets than others, but a bunch of people who worked on Avengers Endgame have recently confirmed that the worst secret keeper on set was definitely Mark Ruffalo. Chris Hemsworth, Brie Larson, Don Cheadle, the Russo brothers, Scarlett Johansson, Denai Guerrera, Chris Evans, and Karen Gillan are just some of the stars who've pointed their fingers at the actor who plays Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, with Gillan even suggesting that he needs his mouth taped up. Ruffalo, of course, blurted out a huge spoiler for Avengers Infinity War and even live-streamed Thor Ragnarok's premiere by accident. Tom Holland, you're officially off the hook. Such is the level of distrust towards Mark Ruffalo with regards to his inability to keep secrets, he had to film multiple endings for his part in Avengers Endgame. And with Endgame being a highly secretive project, the decision was made on the part of the writers and directors to not only give Ruffalo an incomplete script, but to make him film 5 endings as well. So he really didn't know how Avengers Endgame was going to end until he saw the final product, meaning he was in pretty much the same boat as the average moviegoer when it came to seeing the movie play out. The people behind Avengers Endgame went the extra mile to prevent Tom Holland from speaking out about the plot by not even giving him a script. Director Joe Russo explained by saying, "Yeah, Tom Holland does not get the script. Tom Holland gets his lines and that's it. He doesn't even know who he's acting opposite of. We use like very vague terms to describe to him what's happening in the scene because he has a very difficult time keeping his mouth shut." Yep, that'll do the trick. On the contrary to Ruffalo and Holland, it also seems to be widely agreed that a certain member of the Avengers Endgame cast is the best secret keeper on set. And that's none other than Iron Man himself, Robert Downey Jr. Chris Evans described him as pretty good at keeping secrets, and Mark Ruffalo agreed, but Don Cheadle and Brie Larson concur with the assessment too, with the latter making the very valid point that RDJ has been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe since 2008 and has therefore had the longest run of time out of any actor, over which he's had to keep the majority of the MCU secrets, well, a secret. This entry goes hand in hand with the last one, and certainly seems to back up what the rest of the cast said about Robert Downey Jr., because he was the only cast member in Avengers Endgame who was given the entire script to read. Of course, it could also come down to the fact that as the flagship star of the MCU for the last 11 years, RDJ has a lot of sway in the franchise, but the fact that he's also deemed trustworthy enough to know exactly what happened in Endgame long before the movie was released or even filmed. And you have to give him credit. Not once did he so much as give a hint at the movie's outcome or the fate of his iconic character. Brie Larson has revealed that she came up with an effective way of preventing herself from giving away any spoilers for Avengers Endgame. She mentally deleted any spoiler information from her brain after each day of filming. Prior to the release of Endgame, the Oscar-winning star who plays Captain Marvel in the MCU said, "I just never wanted to feel like I was gonna slip up or that I was gonna say the wrong thing. So I really just deleted it. I tried my best to journal it if I wanted to recall it and go, oh yeah, that was a crazy time." Speaking of Brie Larson filming her scenes, the Captain Marvel star has said that she really didn't know what was going on when she filmed her scenes for Avengers Endgame. And that includes the Captain Marvel post-credits scene that led directly into it. For that post-credits scene, she filmed it alone. The other Avengers actors weren't actually present. She just had to stand in front of a green screen and say, "Where's Fury?" Then for her scenes in the actual movie, she was flown to Atlanta to start filming, at which point she was given a script with every line of dialogue redacted apart from her own. Her script looked like the Mueller report. She really didn't even know the context of her lines. When you see him in his War Machine costume in Avengers Endgame, Don Cheadle is actually wearing what he describes as a very embarrassing and tight-fitting unitard, which has markers all over it that a computer reads and uses to track his character for motion capture purposes. Cheadle has described the unitard as very revealing, and he explained that Tom Holland and Mark Ruffalo also wear the same embarrassing garment during a lot of filming. According to Cheadle, Ruffalo invented this cloth that comes down in the front and in the back, which he calls a modesty cloth, in order to cover up the more discreet areas. Kind of makes the Hulk seem a lot less intimidating. In 2015's Avengers Age of Ultron, Tony Stark moved the Avengers to a new headquarters in upstate New York, but prior to Endgame, no scenes had actually been filmed there. However, for Endgame, 2 filming locations in the Hudson Valley were used for the new Avengers base, with Marvel Studios tasking the Hudson Valley Film Commission with finding open fields with hills and terrain that could be used as a battlefield in the new film, and Mills Mansion in Statsburg was eventually chosen. But the cast never went there. IMAX cameras were taken to Mills Mansion for sweeping shots of the landscape, and helicopters and boats were used to capture the battlefield location, but the cast shot their scenes against a green screen in Atlanta, Georgia. There's a series of Marvel comics called What If, whereby writers can create bizarre scenarios exploring how the Marvel Universe might have unfolded if key moments in its history had not occurred as they did in mainstream continuity. For example, what if Doom became Sorcerer Supreme, and what if the Fantastic Four all had the same power as the Human Torch? Well, Avengers Endgame writers Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely have described the movie as their what if. And when you think about it, Thor becoming an overweight drunk, Clint Barton becoming a murdering maniac, Natasha Romanoff becoming a shut-in, and Tony Stark becoming a dad all seemed crazy and bizarre a few years ago. So, Endgame really is like a what-if story. Karen Gillan, who of course played Nebula in Avengers Endgame, has recently joked about how filming for the movie seemed to never end. The Scottish actress revealed that her last day on set was only a few weeks ago when the movie was only a couple of weeks from its release date. She even confessed that the cast jokingly began calling Endgame the Infinity Movie during the seemingly endless reshoots. Gillan said, "We call it the Infinity Movie. It just never ends. I think we're gonna be at the premiere and they're gonna be playing it and we'll act the last scene live because they won't have finished it." Hey, That's actually a pretty cool idea. Write that down, Hollywood. Avengers Endgame was one of the most secretive projects in movie history, to the point that the vast majority of the cast didn't know their own characters' fates, and no personal filming or photographs was allowed on set. However, in recent days, Chris Pratt has revealed some footage he sneakily filmed on his phone on the set of the movie's epic final battle. The footage truly shows how huge the movie was, courtesy of the vast array of stars present in it, including Chris Evans, who humorously poses until he realizes Pratt is taking a video, not a photograph. Pratt himself describes the footage as illegal in the short clip, and we just hope the Star-Lord actor doesn't get in trouble for filming it. Of course, Pratt could use the old "I wasn't the only one" justification if indeed he does get reprimanded for filming on the set of Avengers Endgame's final battle, because Scarlet Witch herself, Elizabeth Olsen, did exactly the same thing. Her footage from the scene is equally as star-studded as Pratt's, and even includes Pratt himself right at the beginning. It also has Chris Evans as the center of attention again as he enthusiastically waves at the camera, as well as a bearded Chris Hemsworth jovially warning Olsen that cameras aren't allowed on set, and Don Cheadle looking less than impressed about the whole thing. Just like he was when Mark Ruffalo spoiled Avengers Infinity War in his presence in that famous interview.
Wait till you see this next one. Everybody dies. Not everybody.
Did you enjoy these behind-the-scenes secrets from Avengers Endgame? Do you know any more? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to ScreenRant for more great videos like this one.